Okay, I think it's recording. This is Dr. Dave Nelson. Um, I'm a little late getting this recorded just because we were waiting so long to make sure we actually had enough people this year. It's been a bit of a weird year. We usually fill the program, usually by the end of the fall semester, we're fully full. This year we have enough to go, thank goodness, but we definitely were a lot slower to fill. As some of you know, we usually do two sessions. We're not doing our second session. I think a couple of you are from that second session, and I'm glad you're joining us in the first session. So we're only doing one this year. So anyway, I waited all the way till the deadline before I wanted to give you any concrete info, just because I wanted to make sure that the program was going to go and what the dates were going to be. So I usually record this a bit earlier, and I've been getting a lot of emails from people that been asking about flights and such. So sorry I haven't given you as much info as I could, but anyway, here we are. So first off, welcome to the program this year. Really, really glad to have all of you guys here. And I think we're 16 students plus two faculty. So it's myself, I'm the director, and I teach the history courses. I know some of you know me because we either have emailed or some of you came on the teams meetings that we were doing in February for recruitment, and so I know I talked to a couple of you. But anyway, for those of you who don't know who I am, again, I'm Dr. Dave Nelson. And so any questions you have or complaints that you might have later, I'm the one to come to. I know a lot right now you're mostly talking to Cassie, and she's the money person. But as far as questions about what's going to happen in Scotland, I'm the one that you talk to. And at the end, I'll give you my email if you don't already have it. The other faculty member is Dr. Laura Ing. She does the literature courses for the program. So you will be getting a chance to meet both of us in May at our mandatory orientation, which I don't want to. I think it's May 12th. It's usually about a week before we leave. So I believe it's Saturday, May 12th, but don't quote me on that. Anyway, again, I'm really glad to have all you guys. So I'll try not to make this too long, but this is a short video. Just a couple of quick things to sort of think about before, too long. And primarily, I want to talk about buying plane tickets. I mean, that's the main thing. That's really, other than getting your passport, if you don't already have one, that's the main thing you need to be concerned about right now. You don't have to do it today, but you definitely need to be doing it soon. So let me go ahead. It's going to take me a second. I'm using um, slightly different technology here. So so should be switching screens, and let me get this show started. Okay. I can't see myself, so hopefully I'm not out of focus or anything. Anyhow, so the dates for session one, as you can see, are Sunday, May 19th through Friday, May 31st. So you do need to be in Edinburgh by that Sunday, May 19th. Now, some of you, again, in past years, some students show up early, or some students stay later, depending on your money. Now, the vast majority of students, will arrive that Sunday and leave on that Friday. But again, you may be wanting, perhaps you want to stay in London, before you come to Edinburgh, or maybe you want to stay a little longer afterwards. That's up to you guys. Just know if you come early or stay late, you have to get your own housing. Where we're staying, we have it reserved from the 19th through the 31st, but anytime before or after that, we don't have reservations. I'm there 2 days early, just so I can kind of get ready. But I think they're pretty booked, so you may have to find hotels elsewhere, just so you know. But anyway, so we'll talk a little bit about when should you actually leave to be there by May 19th. I do have other videos. I've sent links to a lot of you, and I will do it again, along with the link to this video. I'll be sending links to these. Some of these I recorded a couple of years ago. A lot of them I recorded last year, and I purposely did it so that I could reuse them. In fact, originally I wasn't going to redo the flight purchasing video, but then I thought, no, I'll go ahead and make one specifically for 2024. I may re-record a couple of these, but they actually still work. So I'll be sending links to all of these because the info doesn't really change year to year. One thing I did want, oops, that's actually slightly out of order. But one thing I did want to talk about, so if one of the videos I have done is the airport transfer. Once you arrive, how do you get to where we're staying, which is the Edinburgh Central Youth Hostel. And there's a lot of options. There's taxis, there's Ubers, of course, and Lyfts. There is a bus. And then, of course, there is the airport tram. And when I recorded the video last year, the tram was still a good option, but it wasn't near the hostel. While we were in Edinburgh last summer, they extended the tram. And in fact, right after the students left, I stayed a couple of weeks later, but after the students left, they opened up that new extension. And in fact, one of the stops is literally half a block from where we're staying. So even though there are other options, this is the best option. And again, we could talk more about this at orientation, but just to give you a quick overview, when you arrive at the airport in Edinburgh, when once you go through all the process, and I have a video about what to expect when you arrive at the airport for those of you who haven't flown, or at least haven't flown internationally. So I have a little thing that goes through that. But once you come out of the airport, you'll see this sign, trams to city center, other words, where we're at. And as you go through, you just walk through this, you'll see these kiosks where you can actually buy your tram tickets, and they take credit card, which is probably what you'll use. But they also take cash. So, I mean, obviously British cash, not American cash, but you can also put cash in there as well. And again, I don't expect you to remember this, but the ticket you're going to want is the one on the right, 3 down. It says adult airport open return. We would say round trip. In Britain, they say return ticket, and that means a round trip ticket. It's a little, So open return means you buy the ticket, you can go at any time, and you can return anytime. That way you're not tied to a day or a time period. It allows you to come back to the airport anytime. So it's £9, 50 cents, or 50p, as they would say. That's actually a pretty good deal. And that, again, that's a round trip ticket. And so once you have that, you don't have to worry about buying it again. That's what I would recommend. And again, the kiosks are touch screen. You put your credit card in. And again, I'm not worried about you remembering this, but the stop you're going to want is the MacDonald Road stop. You can see it at the bottom towards the right there. So you would just click that. And again, this is kind of a map of all the trams. So on the left side is at the airport. All the way on the other side is a place called Leith. We're close to Leith, and again, you can see at the top the names of all the stops where you would want the MacDonald Road stop. This is, again, just a Google map. I know this means nothing to you, but if you look at the bottom, kind of center bottom, you see Edinburgh Central Youth Hostel. Then if you look at the top, I couldn't quite get it all in there, but you see what's clearly MacDonald Road right there at the top, kind of the top right corner there. I mean, that's just one block. And the tram stops about midway through that block. This is actually the stop here. You can see the building. It says Tribe Yoga. That's the same building that the hostel is in. It's just the hostel would be to the left about a half block. This year, I'm going to make sure I take a photo. I'm trying to get this off Google. So next year, I'll make sure I have some good photos of this. But this is the same stop. And I know you can't really, I know where it is. But if you look at those buildings, you go all the way to the end of the tram. There's kind of a light brick. That's actually a hostel. So you can see just how close it is. It's literally like half a block away. That's why this is a game changer. This is the easiest. You literally walk out of the airport, buy your ticket. The trams run every 7 minutes, and then you hop on your tram. It takes about 30 minutes, maybe 35 minutes. It's a nice, easy ride. And again, you just walk on with your luggage, no big deal. And you get off to the MacDonald Road exit, or the stop, and then again, it's literally right there. And at orientation, I'll make sure I'll have a better map to give you, so you don't, but it's easy. And if you miss the stop, the next stop is only a couple blocks away. It's all really, really, really close. So, Okay, so I just wanted to mention that in case you're looking at the airport transfer video. I mean, you still have the options of taxis and Ubers. And to be honest, if there's like 4 or 5 of you together, it might actually be cheaper to just get a taxi together. You can put 4 or 5 in one big taxi, split the cost. Taxis run 20 to 25 pounds. So, 5 people, that's only £5 each. But again, that is only one way. So again, I still think the trams ultimately are the easiest. That's just my option. That's what I use. I mean, that's how I'm going to get back and forth. So anyway, the purpose of this video really is to get you thinking about buying plane tickets. And like I said, I am going to send links to the other videos because you do need to be thinking about, getting a good pair of shoes. I would highly recommend you start walking because we are going to walk a lot on this program. All the European study abroad programs do a lot of walking. It's the number one complaint from students because we're a driving culture. We're not used to walking all the time. So, walk in the evenings a little bit, get used to that. Make sure you get your medicines ready, get your money ready. But again, I have videos on all of that. So today is just about buying plane tickets. I know this is the one thing that makes students really, really nervous. I've had lots of emails from students. I know a lot of students, including from my school, ABAC. A lot of students that were going to go, they got nervous about buying plane tickets and they dropped. So I know this is one of the reasons why some students don't go because they don't feel comfortable buying plane tickets. First off, it's not that hard. I know it's a big ticket item, it's a lot of money, but really it's not that difficult once you've done it a couple of times. I can still help, shoot me an email or something, but I just want you to think about considerations when you do buy plane tickets. Because you can spend way too much. And I'm not going to lie, the tickets aren't cheap this year. They were expensive last year and they're expensive this year. They're more than they used to be. So sadly, I think it's the new norm. Anyway, so we'll get into prices in just a moment. So again, and I'm going to go through, I did some, I'm recording this on Tuesday night. Gosh, what day is it? Tuesday, March 26th. So just about 45 minutes ago, I did some searches. And I have screenshots of those. So these are as of March 26th today. But anyway, some considerations as you do search for flights. One thing is if you can, try to buy tickets from just one airline. What I mean by that, sometimes you get on Expedia or something like that, and a lot of times you'll get a pretty good price, but it might be you're flying because most of your tickets are going to be at least one stop. In other words, you're going to probably fly from Atlanta maybe to Boston or fly from Atlanta to London, and then a second flight from London or Boston to Edinburgh. I mean, you're rarely going to get one direct flight. And if you do, it's going to be expensive. London, you'll get a lot of direct flights, but not to Edinburgh. So again, a lot of times you might find a really cheap price, but it'll be like Delta from Atlanta to London, and then Air France from London to Edinburgh. And again, you might get a great price, and that can work. I've done it. The downside of that, the reason I'm recommending that you only do one airline, is that if for some reason that first flight is late, and lately flights have not been as on time as they used to be. So let's say that first flight is an hour late for whatever reason, and you miss the second flight, you have to buy a new ticket. If it's the same airline, like if it's all Delta or British Airways, if they're late, they will make it up because it's their fault. So because it's all the same airline, they will find you a second flight for no charge because it's their fault. But if it's a different company, they don't care. So that's what I'm saying. It's because do expect when you travel, whether it's airlines or train or whatever, just know that things are going to go wrong. I'll say this a bunch of times in all the videos and in orientation. Take a deep breath and just know things might go wrong. Don't sweat it. Just roll with it. I mean, that's one of the secrets to travel, is just knowing to just kind of chill a little bit. Easier said than done, I know. So again, you kind of do need to expect that things might happen. So again, one airline is a little safer. And I do have, if possible, sometimes they're so expensive, you may have to go with two airlines. But if you can, try to stick with one airline, at least for one journey. Now coming back, I mean, again, it's nice if it's all one airline, but for that journey of 2 or 3 flights, make sure it's all one airline. Again, if you can get a nonstop, that means like from Atlanta directly to Edinburgh. That's great. Problem is really expensive usually. Occasionally you will find a nonstop. Like I said, if you're going to a bigger city like Paris or London, they're pretty common. But Edinburgh is a smaller city, so you tend to go somewhere else first and then switch. And like I said, if you haven't flown before, I know that can be a little intimidating. It really isn't that bad. And like I said, I have a whole video about what to expect when you're flying. Most of the time, including when I buy tickets, it's almost always going to be one stop. And again, that means like if you're flying out of Atlanta, you're probably going to fly to, again, London, and then you'll get off the plane, get on the second plane, and that will take you all into Edinburgh. So again, some flights are 2 stops or 3 stops. I highly recommend not doing more than 1 stop, because now you're getting into 3 flights, sometimes even 4 flights. Every one of the flights could be late or or get canceled or have a problem. So it's like there's too many variables, in my opinion. So I almost never, I'm not saying I never do it, but I almost never do more than 2 flights at a time. I just think it just, just too much. But again, we had students last year that I think did 3 flights coming over, and it worked just fine. So again, that's your choice, but this is just my recommendation. Layover time, and again, if you haven't flown before, the terminology may throw you off, but what that means is, again, let's say you're flying from Atlanta to, say, Boston, because that's a very common flight. It goes to Boston to Edinburgh. So when you land in Boston, there's a time before your next flight takes off, right? And that's known as your layover time. So a lot of times you're making tickets and you think, oh, an hour layover time, that's easy. Great. And so you book it, and sometimes that works perfectly. But the problem is when you see, like, the flight lands at 3:30 p.m. and then your next flight says 4:30 p.m. Keep in mind that 3:30 means that's when the plane lands. Literally, the wheels touch the ground is at 3:30. That doesn't mean that's when you get off the plane. Sometimes it's really quick, but a lot of times, you might be what they call taxiing. That means you're just driving around finding a place to park. Then it might take a long time to just get off the plane. And sometimes, I know actually in Boston last year, I remember I literally was another part of the airport. So, and it took a while to get from where I landed to where the next flight was. And, so that might take you a little while. And also when it says 4:30 takeoff, that literally means when the wheels leave the ground, but they start loading 40 minutes before especially big international flights, like 40 minutes before it takes off. So keep in mind that even like a 2-hour layover, from when you get off the plane and get onto the next plane, you may only have 30 minutes. So I tend to be really cautious about this. I know my wife, who often buys the tickets, she don't like long layovers. I like a long layover. I bring a book with me and just ease. But at the same time, you do also want to make sure it's not like a 15-hour layover. You got to watch it both ways. So just be thinking about that time. And like I said, I personally recommend don't do less than an hour. And personally, I like 2-hour layovers. That's my personal preference, 2 hours. And I try not to do more than 5 hour layovers. That's a long layover. But anyway, also keep in mind that a lot of times when you see the ticket, your checked bag, that means like your suitcase. Because you have there's a carry-on, like like your backpack, that's your carry-on, right? Or your purse or something. That means you literally carried on the flight. You're usually allowed a carry-on and even like a what they call a personal item. And then you have your checked bag. That's your actual suitcase that they check it in before you get on the plane, and they store it below the flight, and then you pick it up when you get to the next airport. For international flights, usually the one checked bag is included, but sometimes it isn't. Sometimes they charge you extra. So make sure you're just paying attention, especially if you're really, really in a tight budget. Just make sure you're paying attention to how much a checked bag is. And again, we do recommend that you only take one suitcase plus a carry-on. Again, we're only there 2 weeks. You really don't need more than one suitcase. When we used to do group flights, where we all we bought one ticket and we all flew together, and then we had transportation. We used to be very strict, like you had to only have one suitcase, but you're flying on your own now. But keep in mind, you're going to be rooming with one other person, so also keep in mind that too much luggage is going to suck up space in the room. So one suitcase, one carry-on. And like I said, this is just me. I go cheap, whether I'm flying by myself or if I'm flying with people. Go economy class. That the cheap seats. Yes, there's business class. Some airlines have others. Of course, there's first class. I've never flown first class. One day before I die, I'll do it one time. But you keep in mind, you're arriving at the airport at the same time. You don't get there any quicker because you're in first class. Yes, they're nice, big seats, but I mean, the prices are ridiculous. So to me, it's a ripoff paying all that extra stuff. Just go economy. Yes, it sucks, but again, flying stinks no matter who you are, and it all stinks. There's no getting around it. And For me, no bells and whistles. There's lots of add-ons they do. They'll charge you more so you get to pick your own seat. Now, like my wife, it's really important. She gets claustrophobic. She likes to pick a seat. So to her, it's worth paying the extra. To me, I like an aisle seat, but if I don't get an aisle seat, I'm fine. Some people really need a window seat. But again, paying for, being able to pick your seat or again, it's kind of like when you buy a car, they add all these stuff on. Most of it you don't need. So again, it's all personal choice, but I try to keep it as basic as you can. Okay. So, there's lots of ways to buy plane tickets. I tend to use Expedia more than others, but I'm going to go through a couple of websites, but they're the easiest to at least demonstrate. So if you go to Expedia.com, they're at least a good place to start from to kind of give a sense of what the prices are going to be and what are the airlines flying to Edinburgh, because there's only so many flights. And I know a lot of you have asked about what flight do I recommend. I am going to give you a little bit of one. There's a couple that are pretty obvious, I think, but there's only so many flights a day anyway. There's not a ton of flights. So most of you are probably going to be on the same flight. So again, I know most of you are probably going to fly out of Atlanta. I'll talk about this more in a moment, but depending on where you are in Georgia, there is the Jacksonville, Florida, which is actually my old hometown. They actually have some pretty cheap prices this year, as you'll see later. So if you're in South Georgia, especially the eastern part of Georgia, that's probably closer than Atlanta, and it's cheaper. If you're really in South Georgia, Orlando sometimes has really cheap prices. So if you're like in Valdosta, Orlando's about the same distance as Atlanta. And I don't know I can't remember which Tennessee, Chattanooga, maybe Tennessee or Charlotte, anyway, but more than likely Atlanta. I think this year, I think I'm flying out of Jacksonville this year. Actually, as I'm recording this, my wife, she's really good at buying tickets. She's actually buying my ticket as I'm recording this, ironically. So, but I'm showing up early. I'm going to be there a few days before you guys will. So, no matter what flight I'm on, it won't be the same ones as you guys. But most of you will probably do Atlanta, and obviously Edinburgh is the city you want to wind up in. Now, again, a couple of you may decide to do London first and then take a train from London to Edinburgh, but we're just going to stick with Atlanta to Edinburgh. And again, the dates you want, this is last year's dates, but the dates you want to arrive Sunday, May 19th. As far as the program's concerned, that's when you need to arrive. But what that really means is your flight's going to be Saturday, the 18th. No matter what, it's always going to be the next day. Coming back, it's weird. Coming back, you can do it in one day, but going over, it's always going to be a 2 days. So when you do your searches, you're going to want to search for May 18th. That's the Saturday, so you can get there by May 19th. And then, of course, coming back, it's May 31st, that Friday. Again, unless you're staying longer, but that's up to you. So again, I did this earlier today, Tuesday, March 26th. This is the prices I came up with, and I arranged them so that it's just simply the lowest price. Sometimes they'll give you other flights first, like what they recommend, whether it's the shortest flight or something like that. But again, just because I know money's tight for all of us, including for the program. With only 16 students, we're really cutting corners this year. So again, it looks like about 1,500, which is higher than it used to be. They're getting up there, but that seems to be, at least on Expedia, the best price. And basically, you can see it's all pretty much the same flight. So again, at least as far as Expedia is concerned, I mean, that would be those top two flights would be the ones I recommend. Essentially, it's the same flight leaving Atlanta, the 10:20 flight, going to London. It's just they have different flights from London to Edinburgh. There's many flights every day from London to Edinburgh. So this is just one has, as you can see, The top one is 11 hours, 30 minutes with one stop that's in London. The second one, basically the same thing. It's just a little bit longer, 13 hours and 25 minutes, one stop in London. It's just, and you can see the layover is you have an hour and 45 minutes in London or 3 hours and 40 minutes in London, and meaning London Airport. They're both good options. Actually, the top one's a pretty good option. I mean, an hour and 45 minutes isn't too bad. Um, when you land in London, you will have to go through passport security. Sometimes you do it in Edinburgh, but if you're arriving in London, you do it in London instead of in Edinburgh. And it can take a little while. So, to be honest, if I was buying the ticket for me, I would probably do the second one. Now, my wife would think I'm crazy, but I would do the 3 hour and 40 minute one only because sometimes passport can take a while. Sometimes you can do it in 20 minutes, sometimes it takes over an hour. But both of those options are good. So those would both be decent options. And again, the third cheapest on Expedia for today, it does change. Although Tuesday and Wednesdays are good days to buy them. So this is probably because that's a travel agent secret is airlines usually have their cheaper deals Tuesday evenings through Wednesday. So you'll notice every day the prices change. So again, I purposely did this on a Tuesday evening. And then you see, then you got a third one, and there's plenty more. I just copied the first three. There's plenty more options, and they're all about the same price. But you see one that says 1635, and you think, oh, that's not too bad. And it leaves about the same time. And in fact, it looks like it arrives 8:30 a.m., but notice it says +2. That means 2 days later. So +1 means 1 day later, +2 means 2 days later. So this would actually be arriving Monday. So if you notice, it's a 28-hour because you have 19 hours in Boston. That's a terrible. So don't do that. So do make sure you pay attention to how long those layovers are, and because sometimes they'll trick you a little bit. Um, I did. I went ahead and put it up here early. I did do a search for Jacksonville, Florida, and you'll see they're significantly cheaper. I mean, like $300 cheaper right now. That might be worth the drive to Jacksonville, especially if you're somewhere in the eastern or southern part of Georgia. If you're near Atlanta, that may not be worth driving all the way to Jacksonville for, but $300 that's a big difference. Like I said, this is actually where I'm going to be flying out of. And again, you'll see it's here, like the top one goes to Washington and then Washington to Edinburgh. One goes from Jacksonville to New York. Actually, two of them go from Jacksonville to New York and then New York to Edinburgh. That second one's a little tight, an hour and 13 minutes. I've done JFK. It's a good airport, but it can be slow. So these are, to me, these are slightly tight on times, just something to be thinking about. I'm not saying they're a bad option, just they are tight on times. So again, just kind of be thinking about it. If you're an experienced traveler, you might want to take a chance. If you're not, you might want a little longer layover. But that's something you do need to think about. Just plain, if you're willing to drive, sometimes that drive might be worth saving money. But you also got to think about, gas, and somebody's got to drive you, or if you're driving yourself, you got to park your car at the airport. How much does that cost? So, anyway. So once you pick your ticket, so let's say I picked that one from Atlanta, the 10:20, so leaving 10:20 in Atlanta, arriving in Edinburgh 2:50 the next day. Keep in mind that Edinburgh is 5 hours earlier than us. Oh, excuse me, 5 hours later. Like, God, I can't even do math today. So I like right now, what time is it? I'm recording. It's 10:30 at night. I'm recording this. It's really in Edinburgh, it's 3:30 a.m. right now. So again, they're 5 hours ahead of us. So 2:50 p.m. Edinburgh time would be really gosh, I can't even do my math today. 9:50 American time. So the departure time is the time where you're leaving, and the arrival time is the time where you arrive. So that's why sometimes you're like, wait a minute, that's a longer time. Then you realize, oh yeah, they're putting in Edinburgh time. So anyway, let's say we pick that one. And this is a British Airways, which is a good airline, by the way. I like using them. Delta is really good. They're a little high this year, by the way. And again, notice they say you can pick your own seat for a fee. I wouldn't mess with that personally. This one, they are including your personal item and your carry-on bag, but they do charge $75 for your checked bag. This is starting to become a little bit of a thing that even international flights are now charging for this. And they're basically saying it's non-refundable. Sometimes if it is refundable, you have to pay more. You can see the third option, 1900, but allows you to get your refund. And if you have to change your day, which you shouldn't have to, it's a $200 fee for that. And then they have a price drop protection, meaning if the price drops, you get that option, but you got to pay $100 to get that option. So so again, you got to read the fine print. Um, So if you notice the 1700 one, they say your first bag's included, but it's $200 more when a check bag's only $75. So you're not really saving any money doing that. So again, just kind of pay attention to the fine print. I would just click basic economy. Then you do your return flight, which usually it's no extra fee, because you were searching for a round trip. Every so often you have to pay a little extra, but like this one you only get one option. There's only one flight coming back through British Airways, so you just click that one because it's the only one. So you leave 9:25 a.m. Edinburgh time, which means you need to be at the airport by 7:25 a.m. That's not too bad. And then you arrive in Atlanta at 8:20 our time Friday night. But again, all together it's about a 15-hour, which this one has a 5-hour layover in London, but you kind of don't have a choice on this one. You're kind of stuck. But again, the nice thing about this, the price isn't too bad for this year, and it's all one airline. It's all British Airways. So good. Okay. So that's Expedia oh, I forgot. I need to go through the whole process. Just so again. So, again, you click it, you check out, it gives you the price, shows you what everything, so the price you're seeing does include all the fees and taxes and all that. So you click checkout, and then you do have to fill it out. Gosh, I meant to have my passport ready to go. You normally don't have to have your passport, but what you do need to have is the exact name on your passport so however your name is on your passport has to match exactly the name on your ticket. I have a pretty simple name, David James Nelson, but like my wife has a hyphenated name, Shook Nelson. So Shook is her maiden name, Nelson's her married name. There's a hyphen. That's what it gets screwed up sometimes because the computer doesn't always put the hyphen in, or if you have a longer name, or some names, certain names from other ethnicities. Sometimes the people don't. Airports don't always, anyway, it can just get confusing. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. So just make sure, or if you have a nickname, like I'm David Nelson, but sometimes I might write Dave Nelson. Things like that can get you in trouble. So make sure that whatever's on your passport, make sure it's exactly right. And double check it, because again, they will be looking, for, there's a discrepancy. You'll still get through eventually, but that can cause a lot of problems. So that's the main thing. Make sure you have your full name as it is on your passport. And then the biggest thing is, of course, everybody here, because you're all USG students, it'll be US America passport. You don't have to have your passport to buy your ticket. Just make sure that the name is the same that you filled out. But you definitely need your date of birth. That's actually important. Anyway, so make sure you fill all that out before you purchase, and make sure you get that exactly right. You can't, again, like I said, don't use nicknames or anything like that. And that's it. That's how you got on Expedia. And so just a couple of searches on some of the other companies. This isn't all of them, but the like Kayaks one, I know my wife uses this quite a bit. It's the same process. This is the hits. This one, at least on the surface, it looked like it was a bit cheaper. Again, it's still British Airways. That seems to be the main one. You're thinking, great, 1474, but again, that doesn't include the check bag. You look over to the left, you can see, I need to add on a check bag. And when you do that, you see, oh yeah, it is actually, it's in fact, actually on this one, Expedia with the check bag actually turns out to be a little cheaper, but it's basically the same price. With it 1507 plus 75, exactly the same price. So with the check bag, 1582, same price. Hopper is another one you can check. And again, I'm only doing the Atlanta. I'm not doing the Jacksonville one of these. Again, notice it's the exact same price. That seems to be the really typical one. You can do this with British Airways as well. I did it with Delta. Sometimes you can go right to the airline website themselves. Um, like I said, with Delta, they actually seem to be a little more expensive this year. They're running about 1,700 instead of 1,500. So again, the basic economy, you can see what the price is there. Oops, sorry, I'm out of slides already. So again, you might want to go to the British Airways website. Sometimes going directly to the airline can be cheaper. So again, before you purchase, maybe hit 4 or 5 websites just to see what the options are. But as you can see, they're all kind of the same this year. So that Saturday the 18th through Friday the 31st, about 1507 plus 75 for your checked bag seems to be pretty much the price. So that 1020 flight for British Airways seems to be the best option. Anyway, if you have any specific questions about airlines or anything else, that's my email if you don't already have it. And that's it. So I think this went on a little longer than I meant for it to, but nonetheless, hopefully that gives you at least a little bit of help buying plane tickets if you haven't already. I know a couple of you have already bought your tickets, but for those of you who haven't. The last thing I'll say is, I know some people are like, well, my advisor told me to wait till the direct, you're in, you might want to wait till you make your first payment to the program. Was that due April 2nd? That's next week. You know, but other than that, there's really no need to, if you know you're going, there's no need to wait. The only thing I might recommend to people is, if it's not too much more money, you might want to look at a refundable ticket. Sometimes that does cost a little bit more. I think it's easier to do that directly through the airline. Unless everybody quits, there should be no reason why we're not going. If there's a pandemic that happens again, they'll refund your money automatically. So anyway, at this point, we're 2 months out, time to buy your ticket, in my opinion, because they do get more and more expensive as we, in fact, I looked these prices up about 2.5 weeks ago, and they were about $300 cheaper than they are now. But I didn't buy because we weren't sure if we were going to make or not. So anyway, sooner you buy, the better it is. So anyhow, thanks guys. And let's see, let me stop sharing. And like I said, when I send this, I'll send links to the other videos, things about medicine, money, getting ready, transfer from the airport, tram, things like that. But other than that, I will talk to you guys later. And one more time, I'm really glad you guys are going. Bye.